The phone buzzed against the marble countertop at exactly 5:47 a.m., shattering the silence of Alina Rodriguez's pristine kitchen. She didn't need to look at the screen to know who was calling. Sebastian Cross never slept, and he expected the same dedication from everyone in his orbit. "Good morning, Mr. Cross," she answered, her voice already crisp and professional despite the early hour. The Morrison deal fell through. His voice carried that particular edge that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. "I need you. In the office in 30 minutes? Cancel everything on my schedule except the board meeting at 2. Alina was already moving toward her bedroom, phone pressed between her shoulder and ear. "Should I reschedule the charity gala planning session with the everything, Alina?" The line went dead. She stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror as she twisted her dark hair into its usual severe bun. 27 years old, and she had perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight. The oversized glasses, the shapeless blazers, the careful way she moved through Sebastian Cross Industries like a ghost. It was safer this way. The elevator to the 42nd floor was empty, as it always was this early. Alina used the ride to center herself, to slip into the role that had kept her employed and unnoticed for 2 years. Executive secretary to the youngest billionaire CEO in the country was a position that required absolute invisibility. Sebastian was already at his desk when she entered, his dark hair catching the morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Even in crisis mode, he looked like he'd stepped off the cover of Fortune magazine. Sharp cheekbones, those devastating blue eyes, and a mouth that had launched 1,000 gossip columns. "The Morrison contract," he said without looking up from his laptop. "What went wrong?" Alina set his coffee down exactly 2 inches from his right hand, the way he liked it. "Their legal team found an issue with the intellectual property clause. I have 3 alternatives ready for your review." He finally looked at her then, and for just a moment, something flickered in his expression. It happened sometimes, these brief instances where he seemed to really see her, not just the efficient machine that managed his life. "You always have alternatives ready," he said, his voice softer than usual. "That's what you pay me for." The moment passed. Sebastian returned to his screen, and Alina retreated to her desk in the outer office. Through the glass walls, she watched him work, the way his brow furrowed when he concentrated, the unconscious gesture of running his fingers through his hair when he was frustrated. She had memorized every detail of Sebastian Cross in the past 2 years. The way he took his coffee black, no sugar. How he loosened his tie when he was thinking. The fact that he stayed in the office until well past midnight most nights, as if going home meant confronting something he wasn't ready to face. What he didn't know was that Alina stayed late too, long after the cleaning crew had gone, working by the light of her desk lamp to ensure his next day would run seamlessly. She told herself it was professional dedication, but in the quiet honesty of those late nights, she knew it was something else entirely. The intercom crackled. "Lena, I need you to coordinate with the Cross Foundation. The charity gala is next week, and I want everything perfect." She pressed the button to respond. "Of course. Any specific requirements?" There was a pause, long enough that she wondered if the connection had failed. Then his voice came through. Quieter than before. "Make sure you'll be there. I know you usually work behind the scenes, but I want you there." In the ballroom. Her heart did something complicated against her ribs. "If that's what you need." "It is." The line went quiet, leaving Alina staring at the intercom with a mixture of anticipation and dread. In 2 years, Sebastian had never specifically requested her presence at a social event. She was the invisible woman, the one who made everything work from the shadows. She began making calls about floral arrangements and catering details. A single thought lodged itself in her mind like a splinter. For the first time since she'd taken this job, Sebastian Cross had asked her to step into the light. She had no idea that by next week, stepping into that light would change everything. Between them, forever. The grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel sparkled like something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing light across cream-colored walls, adorned with arrangements of white roses and baby's breath. Alina had spent weeks perfecting every detail, from the placement of the champagne fountains to the precise angle of the Cross Foundation banners. She smoothed her hands over the simple black dress she'd chosen, suddenly self-conscious about appearing in front of Sebastian's social circle. The dress was elegant, but understated, professional rather than glamorous. Her hair was still pulled back, though she'd allowed herself the small rebellion of leaving her glasses in her purse. "Ms. Rodriguez." Robert Cross appeared beside her, his silver hair gleaming under the ballroom lights. Sebastian's father had the same piercing blue eyes as his son, but where Sebastian's held warmth, Robert's were calculating and cold. "Excellent work tonight. Everything looks perfect." "Thank you, Mr. Cross." "The catering staff reports that dinner will be served precisely at 8. Robert nodded, then leaned closer. "I assume Sebastian has briefed you about tonight's announcement." Alina's stomach tightened. "Announcement?" "The engagement, of course. Diana Hartwell will be joining our family officially. The merger with Hartwell Media has been months in the making, and tonight we make it public." His smile was sharp as a blade. "Trust we can count on your discretion and support." Before Alina could respond, Robert moved away, leaving her reeling. Engagement. The word echoed in her mind as she watched Sebastian across the room, resplendent in his custom tuxedo, surrounded by the usual crowd of admirers and business associates. Diana Hartwell stood beside him like a vision in red silk, her blonde hair cascading over one shoulder, her smile practiced and perfect. She was everything Alina was not: beautiful, confident, born into the world Sebastian inhabited. She belonged here in a way Alina never would. Champagne. A server appeared at her elbow, but Alina shook her head. She needed to stay sharp, to maintain her professional composure, even as her chest felt like it was caving in. She had been foolish to read anything into Sebastian's request for her presence tonight. This wasn't about her at all. He simply needed his trusted assistant nearby to ensure everything ran smoothly for his engagement announcement. The evening progressed with clockwork precision. Dinner was served without incident, the speeches from various board members were well received, and the auction for the foundation raised more money than projected. Alina moved through it all like an automaton, checking details and coordinating with staff while trying to ignore the way her heart cracked a little more each time she saw Sebastian and Diana together. At 10:30, Robert Cross took the stage. The crowd quieted, champagne glasses suspended in midair, as the room's attention focused on the silver-haired patriarch of the Cross Empire. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your generous support of the Cross Foundation tonight. Before we conclude this wonderful evening, I have a special announcement to make." Alina found herself holding her breath, her eyes automatically seeking Sebastian in the crowd. He stood near the champagne fountain, but instead of looking at his father or Diana, his gaze was fixed on her. Their eyes met across the ballroom, and she saw something in his expression that looked almost like regret. "It gives me great pleasure to announce the engagement of my son Sebastian to the lovely Diana Hartwell, daughter of media mogul Charles Hartwell. This union represents not just the joining of two hearts, but the merger of two great companies that will reshape the landscape of American business." The crowd erupted in applause and congratulations. Diana's smile was radiant as she accepted kisses on both cheeks and admiring comments about her engagement ring. But Sebastian remained motionless by the champagne fountain, his eyes still locked with Alina's. Time seemed suspended between them, the noise of the celebration fading to a distant hum. In that moment, Alina saw past his perfectly composed exterior to something raw and desperate underneath. He looked like a man who had just watched his own execution. Then Diana was at his side, her manicured hand on his arm, and the spell was broken. Sebastian turned to accept congratulations from well-wishers, slipping back into his role as the perfect son, the dutiful heir to the Cross Empire. Alina turned and walked quickly toward the service exit, her professional mask finally cracking. She needed airspace, somewhere to process the fact that the man she had fallen for over 2 years of quiet devotion was now officially promised to someone else. She made it to the hotel's empty corridor before the tears started, hot and angry, against her cheeks. This was what she got for forgetting her place, for allowing herself to believe that Sebastian's small kindnesses meant something more than employer consideration. The sound of footsteps behind her made her quickly wipe her eyes and straighten her shoulders. When she turned, Sebastian was striding toward her, his bow tie undone, and his usually perfect hair disheveled. "Alina, wait. Congratulations, Mr. Cross. Diana is lovely. You'll be very happy together." He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, could see the conflict warring in his blue eyes. "This isn't what I wanted. It doesn't matter what you wanted. It matters what's best for the company, for your family. I understand that. Do you?" His voice was rough, desperate, so I don't understand any of this. I don't understand how I'm supposed to marry someone I don't love while the woman can't stop thinking about stands 3 feet away from me trying to be professional about it. The words hit her like a physical blow. For a moment, neither of them moved, the weight of his confession hanging between them like a live wire. "Sebastian," she whispered, but he was already reaching for her, his hands framing her face with desperate tenderness. "I can't do it, Alina. I can't marry her. Not when you're the one I want." Before she could respond, before she could think, or protest, or remember all the reasons this was impossible, his mouth was on hers. The kiss was everything she had imagined and nothing she had prepared for, desperate and hungry and completely devastating. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alina could hear the distant sound of the party continuing in the ballroom. Diana was probably wondering where her fiancé had gone. Robert Cross was probably already making plans for the wedding. And Alina Rodriguez, the invisible woman who had spent 2 years perfecting the art of staying in the shadows, was about to step into the most dangerous light of her life. "We need to go back," Alina whispered against Sebastian's mouth, but neither of them moved. They stood in the empty corridor like two people drowning, clinging to each other in the wreckage of everything they had thought they understood about their lives. "Not yet," Sebastian's voice was raw. 5 more minutes. Let me have 5 more minutes before I go back in there and pretend I'm happy about marrying someone else." Alina's heart shattered at the pain in his voice, but the sound of approaching footsteps forced them apart. She quickly smoothed her dress and checked her reflection in the corridor's mirrors. While Diana appeared around the corner, her red dress rustling as she walked. Her smile was perfectly in place, but Alina caught the sharp calculation in her green eyes as she took in the scene. "There you are, darling. Your father is looking for you." Something about photos with the Hartwell family. Diana's gaze flicked to Alina dismissively. "I'm sure your secretary can handle whatever crisis needed your attention." "Of course," Alina said smoothly, slipping back into her professional mask. "I was just updating Mr. Cross on the evening's final details. Everything is proceeding perfectly." Sebastian looked like he wanted to say something, but Diana had already linked her arm through his, leading him back toward the ballroom. Over her shoulder, she called back to Alina with honeyed poison. "You've done such wonderful work tonight. It must be so fulfilling to help create magical moments for other people." Alina watched them disappear around the corner, Diana's words echoing in her mind. The message was clear: know your place, stay in the shadows, and remember that you're only here to serve. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of cleanup coordination and vendor payments. By the time the last guest had left and the final details were wrapped up, it was nearly 2 in the morning. Alina's feet ached in her heels, and exhaustion weighed on her shoulders like a lead blanket. She was gathering her purse and coat when Sebastian appeared in the now empty ballroom. He'd removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, looking more human than the polished executive who had accepted congratulations all evening. "You don't have to clean up. I can hire people for that. It's already done." She couldn't quite meet his eyes. "Congratulations again on your engagement. I'm sure the merger will be very successful, Alina." He stepped closer, and she forced herself to look up at him. "About what happened in the corridor was a mistake," she finished firmly. "You're under a lot of pressure, and I'm sure the evening was overwhelming. People do things they don't mean when they're stressed." Something dangerous flickered in his blue eyes. "Is that what you think? That I didn't mean it? I think you're engaged to be married to a woman who's perfect. For you, in every way that matters. I think your father is right about the business benefits of this union. And I think we both need to forget tonight ever happened." Sebastian moved closer until he was standing directly in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "What if I don't want to forget? Then you're being selfish." The words came out sharper than she intended, propelled by the pain she'd been holding back all evening. "This isn't just about you, Sebastian. This affects me too. my career, my reputation, my entire life. I can't be your secret distraction while you marry someone else." He recoiled as if she'd slapped him. "A distraction? Is that really what you think you are to me? I don't know what I am to you." That's the problem. Alina's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. "For 2 years, I've organized your life, managed your schedule, watched you date women who look nothing like me, and could never love you the way I—" She stopped herself, horrified by what she'd almost said. The silence stretched between them, loaded with everything they couldn't say. "The way you what, Alina?" She shook her head, wrapping her coat tighter around herself like armor. "It doesn't matter. You're getting married in a few months, and I need to start looking for another job. This situation has become untenable. You're quitting? Being realistic? Do you honestly think I can continue working for you after tonight? That I can sit outside your office day after day, planning your wedding, coordinating your honeymoon? Pretending that I don't?" She stopped again, but this time Sebastian caught her hand. "That you don't what?" The question hung in the air between them. Alina looked down at their joined hands, at the way his fingers intertwined with hers like they belonged there. She thought about 2 years of quiet devotion, of staying late too, make his life easier, of memorizing his preferences and anticipating his needs. She thought about the way her heart raced every time he smiled at her, the way she looked forward to Monday mornings just to see him again. "That I don't love you," she whispered. Sebastian's breath caught. In the empty ballroom surrounded by the remnants of his engagement party, Alina Rodriguez finally spoke the truth that had been burning in her chest for months. "I love you," she said again, stronger this time. "I've loved you for so long that I can't remember what it felt like not to love you. And that's why I have to leave, because I can't watch you marry someone else. I'm not that strong." Before he could respond, she pulled her hand free and walked toward the exit. This time Sebastian didn't follow her. He stood alone in the ballroom, surrounded by the wreckage of his carefully ordered life. Finally understanding the true cost of the choices that had been made for him. Outside, Alina hailed a taxi and gave the driver her address. As the city lights blurred past the window, she pressed her fingertips to her lips. Still feeling the phantom warmth of Sebastian's kiss, tomorrow she would submit her resignation. Tomorrow she would start the process of rebuilding her life without him. But tonight, she allowed herself to remember the way he had looked at her in the corridor. Like she was the answer to a question he hadn't known he was asking. Tonight, she held on to the memory of being seen, really seen, by the man she loved. It would have to be enough. Alina's resignation letter sat in her printer tray for 3 days before she found the courage to deliver it. The pristine white paper seemed to mock her every time she walked past her home office, a tangible reminder of the conversation she dreaded having. Sebastian had been in back-to-back meetings since the gala, and their interactions had been strictly professional. He didn't mention their kiss or her confession, and she didn't bring up her plans to leave. They moved around each other like careful strangers, maintaining the fiction that nothing had changed. But everything had changed. On Thursday morning, Alina finally slipped the letter into the stack of documents requiring Sebastian's signature. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed it on his desk, the resignation buried beneath quarterly reports and contract amendments like a bomb waiting to explode. She was reviewing catering options for an upcoming board retreat when Sebastian's voice cut through the intercom. "Alina, my office." Now, her stomach dropped, but she walked to his door with her head held high. Sebastian stood behind his desk, her resignation letter in his hand, his expression unreadable. 2 weeks' notice, he said without preamble. "That's all I get after 2 years? Standard professional courtesy. There's nothing standard about this situation." He moved around the desk to face her. The letter crumpled in his fist. "Is this because of what happened at the gala? This is because I need to move forward with my career. I've learned a great deal working for you, but it's time for me to pursue other opportunities." Sebastian laughed, but there was no humor. In the sound, other opportunities. Very diplomatic, Alina. Almost like you practiced that speech. She had practiced it, standing in front of her bathroom mirror, until the words sounded natural instead of heartbroken. "I'm sorry if my departure creates any inconvenience. I'll make sure to train my replacement thoroughly. There won't be a replacement. The finality in his voice caught her off guard. What do you mean? I'm not replacing you. I'm dissolving the position. Alina stared at him, confusion and hurt warring in her chest. I don't understand. Sebastian turned away from her, moving to stand by the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. His shoulders were rigid with tension, his hands clasped behind his back, like he was bracing for impact. The engagement is off. The words hit her like a physical blow. What? I called it off this morning, told Diana and both our fathers that. I couldn't go through with it. Turned back to face her, and she saw something raw and desperate in his blue eyes. The merger is dead. My father isn't speaking to me, and the board thinks I've lost my mind. Sebastian? No. You can't have done that. The business implications alone, I don't care about the business implications. He moved closer to her, his voice intense. Do you want to know what I told them? I told them I was in love with someone else. Someone who sees me as more than just a useful merger opportunity or a strategic alliance. Alina's heart hammered against her ribs. That was incredibly stupid. Diana is perfect for you. She understands your world. Your responsibilities. Diana understands balance sheets and stock portfolios. She doesn't understand that I stay late at the office because going home to an empty apartment feels like dying a little bit every day. She doesn't know that I drink my coffee black because my mother used to make it that way before she died. She's never seen me lose my temper or struggle with a decision or doubt myself. He was standing directly in front of her now, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his blue eyes. But you've seen all of that, and you've never tried to fix me or change me or make me into someone more convenient. You've just been there, steady and brilliant and completely essential to every good thing in my life. Sebastian, please don't do this. Her voice was barely a whisper. You're going to destroy everything your family built because of some fantasy about us. I'm not Diana. I don't come with media empires or social connections, or you come with something better. You come with the ability to make me want to be the man I actually am instead of the man everyone expects me to be. He reached up to cup her face in his hands, the gesture so tender it broke something inside her chest. I know I'm asking you to take a huge risk. I know I'm asking you to give up your career and step into a spotlight that might burn us both. But I can't marry Diana when you're the one I love. The word hung between them like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Love. Not attraction or convenience or strategic advantage, but love. The real thing, messy and complicated and utterly transformative. The press will destroy me, Alina whispered. They'll say I'm a gold digger, that I seduced my boss, that I broke up your engagement for money. Let them say whatever they want. I know the truth, and so do you. Your father will never accept me. My father doesn't get to choose who I love anymore. Alina closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Everything logical, everything safe, screamed at her to walk away. To take another job, to find a man who wouldn't come with media scrutiny and family disapproval, and the constant pressure of living in the public eye. But when she opened her eyes and saw Sebastian looking at her like she held his entire future in her hands, all the logical arguments crumbled away. If we do this, she said carefully, there have to be rules. I won't be your kept woman or your guilty secret. If I'm going to step into your world, I'm going to do it as your equal. Hope flickered in his expression. Anything you need. I want to keep working. Maybe not as your assistant, but I want my own career, my own identity outside of being Sebastian. Cross's girlfriend. Done. And I want honesty between us. No more games, or pretending, or careful politeness. If this is real, then it has to be real. Sebastian's hands were still framing her face, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. With reverent gentleness, it's real, Alina. It's the most real thing in my life. When he kissed her this time, it wasn't desperate or stolen or shadowed by guilt. It was a promise, a declaration, a leap of faith into an uncertain but beautiful future. Outside Sebastian's office, the phones were ringing with crisis calls about the broken engagement. The stock price was probably dropping as news of the failed merger spread. There would be consequences and complications and 1,000 obstacles to navigate. But in that moment, wrapped in each other's arms, with the city sprawling below them. Alina Rodriguez and Sebastian Cross were no longer hiding in the shadows. They were stepping into the light together, ready to face whatever came next. 6 months later, Alina stood in front of the bathroom mirror in Sebastian's penthouse apartment, adjusting the collar of her emerald green dress. The woman looking back at her bore little resemblance to the invisible secretary who had hidden. Behind oversized glasses and shapeless suits, her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, her confidence evident in the set of her shoulders and the direct gaze of her dark eyes. The transition hadn't been easy. The media frenzy following Sebastian's broken engagement had lasted for weeks, with photographers camping outside her apartment and tabloids, speculating wildly about the mysterious secretary who had stolen the billionaire's heart. There had been cruel headlines, invasive questions, and more than one attempt to dig up embarrassing details from her past, but there had also been unexpected support. Sebastian had stood beside her through every storm, his hand steady on her back during press conferences, his voice fierce when defending her character to skeptical board members. More surprisingly, some of his friends had welcomed her with genuine warmth. Curious about the woman who had managed to capture the heart of the famously commitment-phobic CEO. "Are you ready for this?" Sebastian appeared in the doorway, devastating. In his black tuxedo, 6 months of happiness had transformed him too, softening the hard edges that corporate pressure had carved into his features. Tonight was the Cross Foundation's spring gala, exactly 6 months after the charity event that had changed everything between them. This time, Alina wouldn't be coordinating from the shadows. She would be walking into that ballroom as Sebastian's partner, his equal, the woman he loved. "As ready as I'll ever be," she said, accepting the jewelry box he offered her. Inside was a necklace of emeralds and diamonds that probably cost more than her old apartment's annual rent. "Sebastian, this is too much. Nothing is too much for you." He moved behind her to fasten the clasp, his fingers gentle against her neck. "Besides, I have something to ask you tonight, and I want you to look like the queen you are when I do it." Alina's breath caught at the implication in his words. But before she could respond, his lips were pressing a soft kiss to the curve of her shoulder. The ballroom of the Meridian Hotel was even more spectacular than it had been 6 months ago. As they walked through the entrance, camera flashes exploded around them, but this time Alina didn't flinch. She kept her chin high and her smile genuine as Sebastian introduced her to business associates and old friends. "Alina, darling, you look absolutely radiant." The voice belonged to Margaret Cross, Sebastian's aunt, and the only member of his family who had wholeheartedly embraced their relationship. "That color is perfect on you. Thank you, Margaret. The Foundation's work this year has been incredible." They talked about the literacy programs and scholarship funds that Alina had helped develop, her natural organizational skills finding new purpose in charitable work. She had discovered a passion for education initiatives, particularly programs that helped young women from disadvantaged backgrounds pursue higher education. "You've brought out a different side of him," Margaret said quietly, watching Sebastian across the room as he laughed with a group of donors. "I haven't seen him this genuinely happy since he was a child." The evening progressed with speeches and auctions, but Alina found herself distracted by Sebastian's unusual nervousness. He kept checking his watch and fidgeting with his cufflinks, behaviors completely at odds with his usual calm confidence. At 10 o'clock, he took the stage for his closing remarks. The ballroom quieted as Sebastian looked out over the crowd of influential guests and major donors. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your generous support of the Cross Foundation tonight. Your contributions will directly impact thousands of young people across the country, giving them opportunities they might never have had otherwise." His eyes found Alina in the crowd, and his expression softened. 6 months ago, I stood in this same ballroom and thought I knew what my future looked like. I thought happiness was something you achieved through careful planning and strategic decisions. I thought love was a luxury I couldn't afford. A murmur rippled through the crowd as they realized this wasn't a standard closing speech. Then someone showed me that the most important decisions in life can't be made with spreadsheets and cost-benefit analysis. Someone taught me that love isn't a weakness to be managed, but a strength that makes everything else possible. Stepped down from the stage and walked directly toward Alina, the crowd parting to make way for him. Her heart hammered against her ribs as he stopped in front of her and dropped to one knee. The ballroom erupted in gasps and excited whispers as Sebastian pulled a ring box from his jacket pocket. The diamond inside caught the light from the chandeliers, sending rainbows dancing across the walls. "Alina Rodriguez," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the sudden silence. "You saved me from a life I thought I wanted but would have hated. You saw past all the armor I wore and loved the man underneath. You made me brave enough to choose happiness over obligation, love over logic." Tears blurred Alina's vision as she looked down at the man who had once been her untouchable boss. Now kneeling in front of 500 people and laying his heart bare, "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that choosing love was the smartest decision I ever made?" The question hung in the air between them, witnessed by cameras and crowds, but ultimately private in its importance. Alina thought about the invisible woman she had been, hiding behind glasses and conservative suits, convinced she was meant to live in the shadows. Then she looked at Sebastian, whose blue eyes held nothing but love and hope and the promise of a future brighter than anything she had dared to imagine. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes, of course, yes." The ballroom exploded in applause as Sebastian slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her. This time, there was nothing desperate or stolen about the kiss. It was pure joy, pure certainty, pure love. As they broke apart, still wrapped in each other's arms, Alina caught sight of their reflection in the ballroom's mirrored walls. 2. People who had found each other against impossible odds, who had chosen love over convenience and truth over safety. She was no longer the invisible woman. She was Alina Rodriguez, soon to be Alina Cross, standing in the brightest spotlight of her life, and finally, completely visible. The cameras flashed around them, capturing the moment for tomorrow's headlines, but Alina barely noticed. All she could see was Sebastian's face. All she could feel was the solid warmth of his hand in hers. All she could hear was the sound of their hearts beating in perfect synchronization. They had stepped out of the shadows together, and there was no going back. Deign to like this video if the story touched your heart, subscribe for more emotional tales, and share with someone who believes in the power of true love, and let us know. In the comments, we love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.